Hello and welcome to the next episode of my Learn With Me Hydrasynth series. This is episode 18, Sound Design, Aftertouch Pad. So let's recap what we're doing here. Learn With Me is a series where I take a synthesizer and I go through my end-to-end process of learning to get the best from it. So far I've done this with the Op6 and now I've gone through the majority of features of the Hydrasynth Explorer. What is the Hydrasynth Explorer? It is a digital synthesizer which has a mini-key polyphonic Aftertouch keyboard and a relatively complex subtractive sound engine. I've gone through, thus far, all of the features in the signal path. I haven't talked about the arpeggiator, but I've covered everything in the main synthesis flow. And now, finally, we're going to get on to using these features to design some sounds. So how is this going to differ from what I've done thus far? Well, thus far, when I have been designing sounds, I've been designing them to demonstrate various features of the synthesizer. What I'm going to be doing now is designing sounds to meet some musical or other sonic need, and hopefully to showcase what makes this synthesizer unique. What I'm going to do today, I think, is one of the more obvious things to do, which is to make a pad. And I'm going to employ the polyphonic aftertouch with that pad to give us some more interesting sounds. And hopefully I'll demonstrate some of the more unique features of the synthesizer and some of my approach to designing sounds along the way. So first, init patch. What I already know that I would like to do is I'd like to take advantage of the wavetables to get some timbral motion, and I think I'm going to be using all of the oscillators. I was thinking it might also be interesting to use the filters in parallel. Even though this is not probably strictly required for this, I think it might give us some additional scope. So first thing to do, I think, is to get the oscillators into wavetable mode, or as it's called here, wave scan. So oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 into wave scan mode. And now we need to edit the wave scan. There's a feature you can use, which is when you hold shift, it will adjust the one that you're changing directly, and it will adjust all of the subsequent wavetable entries. So this is horizon, and it contains 8 wavetable entries. Let's go to oscillator number 2, go in wave scan, and let's pick something else. You may note that this is kind of an arbitrary process, and it is indeed an arbitrary process. I'm not going in any great detail here, I'm just working my way through quickly to get us something which works, and obviously if you were doing this yourself you would refine more. So let's listen. Now let's manually move through this wavetable. So first thing that I know that I want to do, I've already mentioned I'm thinking of running the 2 filters in parallel. So filter 1, let's have that as a low pass filter. Filter 2 is going to be what? So filter 1 is low pass, filter 2. I think low pass filter is going to be fine here. So we have the sound currently is passing through these in series. It's going through filter 1, then filter 2. But what I'm going to do is change this in 2 ways. First, I'm going to change the routing to parallel. This means I now have 2 filters and I can adjust which of the oscillators or how much goes to each one of those. And now these are parallelly routed. You may notice no particularly significant sound difference, and that is because all the sound is being routed to filter 1. This is a ratio 100% to filter 1, 0% to filter 2. This is okay for now, but we're going to change this as we go forward. So that was oscillator 1, that's oscillator 2, oscillator 3. Maybe it can stay as a saw wave. We might adjust the frequency later, but let's bring all 3 of these in and just let's listen to it. We already have something which is quite full. I think what I might do is I might also bring in some ring mod, and just to listen to the parameters of ring mod, I'm going to use solo mode. So now the ring mod is soloed, and there is no sound. Why? Because the ring mod volume is down. And again, probably I'm going to be interested in some noise, so let's go back to the mixer, let's solo the noise, turn some up. Just some bassy noise to come through there. So now let's unsolo, and let's balance these levels, and then we can start adding some movement here. That's fine. So first, I think I'm going to bring in the noise loud enough that I can hear it. Ring mod, just so it covers it a little. Oscillator 3, so it kind of takes over that. And oscillator 1 and 2 are probably going to be equal level. So we already have something which is a little more timbrally interesting. I think I'm also going to pan these oscillators out. So oscillator 1 and 2 are probably going to be my main oscillators. And then let's treat the ring mod and oscillator 3 like two other oscillators. So let's bring oscillator 1 and 2 out to plus minus 40. And let's bring oscillator 3 out to, say, minus 15. And let's bring the ring mod out to plus 15. And let's leave the noise in the middle. Sounding okay to me. So now we're going to start doing some wavetable movement. So thus far, the wavetables have just been fixed. Now what I could do is I could move the wavescan number to be some value and modulate above and below that. But instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a unipolar modulation which will only increase. So I can leave the wavescan value where it is and have the modulation go up and down from there. So I'm going to route, let's say, two separate let's go LFO4 is going to go to oscillator 1, LFO5 is going to go to oscillator 2. But I want this to be unipolar positive, and this one also unipolar positive. What parameter do I want them to adjust? I want them to adjust in both cases the wavescan. This one I wanted to adjust the wavescan. To hear these separately, I think I'm going to solo oscillator 1, so we're only going to listen to one modulation to start with. So you can hear the pan there because I panned it out to the side. So I can already hear that I don't really like the way the sine wave hangs around near the end of that modulation. I think triangle works much better here. Obviously this is moving quite quickly. Okay, I think I like that. Now let's listen to oscillator 2 and let's do something similar. So we've got LFO5 routed to that. Okay, so now I'm going to want to adjust these, and I'm going to adjust their rate of the LFOs. Also, rather than poly trigger, I'm going to try and put them in single trig mode. So single trig mode means that it's like legato triggering. So when one note is pressed, the LFOs reset, and no matter how many other keys I press, they don't reset again, they stay synchronized. So this is going to have some capacity for consistency in LFO movement by resetting, but it's not going to be reset every time I press another key. The other thing I'm going to want is these to be much slower. So let's just pick a couple of rates and let's unsolo. So I like the motion that we have there. it might be interesting to do a little stereo motion as well. So looking in the mod matrix, LFO4 is modulating oscillator 1. So what I think I'll do is I'll make LFO4 pan oscillator 2 and bipolar. So 4 goes to 1. So in this case, I'm going to have 4 going to pan 2. It just needs a little bit of motion there. And 5 is going to go to pan 1. I guess I can do it in the opposite sense. So now I think we have some interesting tom roll movement going on there. Maybe I'll start adding some mutants. One of the mutants I think might be nice to add some additional width. Not that it's not wide already. Not stereo width, by the way, I mean sonic width, is the wave stack. So what that's going to do is take multiple copies of the same waveform, detune them, and put them on top of each other. So mutant 1, I'm going to use wave stack, mutant 2, wave stack. So that's oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. I'm going to set these to 100%. I'm going to solo 1 just so it's easier to hear. So I quite like the sound around about 10, so I'm going to do the same on both of them. So we have a lot of motion going there, which I'm quite happy with. Now let's start turning this into a pad. First thing to do to turn it into a pad is to shape the amplitude. I'm thinking here, classic pad, slow attack, decays a little, sustains long, slow release. So let's just shape it that way. Maybe 2.5 seconds on the attack, maybe 5-second decay. Release, how about 2 seconds? Okay, so I think what we need now is a little bit of filter motion. So what I'll probably do is I'll make a filter envelope that is just going up and down. Maybe I'll make it the same sort of length. So this is about 7 seconds. So let's say this envelope is going to raise over 3 seconds, and then it's going to fall over 4 seconds, and then it can release over 2 and go back down to 0. At the moment, only filter 1 is doing something meaningful here. But what I think I'm going to do then is send a little bit of each of these sounds one way and other. Yeah, I think that's going to work. So let's look at the filter ratios. So let's send oscillator 1, 75% to filter 1. And oscillator 2 can go 75% to filter 2. Oscillator 3 can go, let's say, 50-50, so it's going to go equally to both of them. And the ring mod, let's go 66, and the noise can go 66 the other way. And we'll just see how that sounds. Sounding okay to me. So now let's add a little bit of this envelope motion. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to close the filters a little bit so the envelope will open them more. So filter 1. I'm going to turn the resonance way up so we can hear that motion a bit. And I'm going to do some of the converse motion on filter 2. So let's just listen to it. Let's turn the resonance up here. Let's add a little bit of velocity sensitivity to the amp and to both of the filters. And let's have the the high pass filter also filter track. By default, it doesn't have any filter tracking, so it just sits at a fixed frequency, so I might have to retune it. So two types of expression that I'd like to take advantage of here. I feel like the velocity expression is okay, but I would like a little bit of a sharper attack when I hit a key harder, and I would also like a quicker release if I release a key quickly. So those are two things which I would like to adjust. So first thing I'm going to do, there's no shortcut to set velocity, so I'm just going to use LFO5 because it's far along the list. So I'm going to have that adjusting here, and adjusting here, adjusting here, and adjusting here. So in none of those cases do I actually want LFO 5. In all of those cases I want velocity. So this is onset velocity. Onset velocity, that's the rate at which I press the key down, and this is velocity off. So that's rate at which the key is released. So first, actually set those the way I wanted them to. So let's try this again. And so I have envelope 1 attack, and this is supposed to be envelope 2 attack. So let me go change that. This is supposed to be envelope 1 release. Release. So let's see, I've got attack 1, attack 2, release 1, and then this can be release 2. Okay. So hopefully that makes a bit more sense. Okay, I think that works. And when I release, I also want the release length to decrease. So slow press, slow release, fast press, fast release. So finally, we're going to get onto adjusting parameters for Aftertouch. One of the things that I like to do is, rather than set them as individual entries in the mod matrix, and I could have done this for velocity as well, I have to go into a number of different slots, but we have all these macro controls, and these macro parameters can be adjusted by the mod matrix. So what I'm going to do is use one of the macro parameters, and that's going to be my Aftertouch expression. What I like to do for that is, for things which a human is going to adjust, I start at number 1. For things which I'm going to adjust in the mod matrix, I start at number 8. So in macro assignment 8, I'm going to start making some adjustments here. So one thing I thought is I quite liked the way that resonance sounded, and I think I like the idea of adding some filter drive here. I think that's going to add some grit. So that's 3 parameters already. First one is going to be resonance. Second one for filter 1 is going to be drive. One of the things that can happen when you use a lot of drive, though, is you can end up with it being too loud. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to get ready to use the amplifier level. So as when the drive increases the volume, I'm going to dial it back at the amplifier. So now I've set these parameters, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that macro all the way up. So that means when making edits in macro assignment, I can hear the maximum effect they'll have, which is useful for making judgment calls here. Drive. Some resonance. So this is with none of it. So I like that. I like the additional resonance that we get there. Another thing that I think I'll do is I want a little more of a timbre shift. So one possibility would be to move the wave scan in response to this, but I'm thinking of adding another mutant. The mutant which I'm going to go for then is one of the pulse width modulation ones. So the pulse width squeeze, and I'll set them both to 100% wet, and then I'll adjust this depth. So I'll set the depths both to 0 then. So this parameter is not doing anything for now. And then, in the macro assignment, I can assign to both of those mutants, and I'm going to be setting the depth in both cases. And now I can just do this by ear. I think maybe the quietening of the amp envelope, I probably don't even need it to be there. Let's just put it even less, and let's turn the drive up even more. Because I think I want it to become a little louder. Another thing that might be interesting is to turn up oscillator 3. So oscillator 3 is quite quiet, so if I bring in more oscillator 3 and maybe even more of the ring mod, we'll get more of a timbre shift here. So let's have a look. We're going to be finishing all of our mod slots for this macro, which is fine by me. So oscillator 3 volume and ring mod volume. So let's have a look. This is turned up. So now let's adjust the parameters. So now we have this fairly soft sound, but we're going to modulate that parameter with Aftertouch. So that's going to bring a lot of character in. So what are we going to do? We're going to be assigning, I'm just going to say it's the LFO, just like you've seen me do on several occasions before, and I'm going to send it to macro. I know that this is macro 8. And I'm going to want full level. So let me just test this. Nope, let's actually test it on Poly Aftertouch. Sounding okay. I think all it really needs to round it off a little is some effects. So let's do it. First effect, chorus is a classic, so I think what I'll also do quickly before I finish that is I will adjust some of these parameters here. So this is going to give us a little more tuning in stability. So at the moment the chorus is way over the top. So let's dial it back. Let's add a little delay. Sounding okay. Let's add some reverb. Probably a hall's going to work here. Okay, and one final effect. Let's see what we want to go for here. Maybe some distortion. So let's go town with this to start with. Okay, so hopefully that's shown something of the workflow that I might follow here. You can imagine that we have a lot of other modulation sources available. I've only used 2 envelopes and I've only used 2 LFOs. So we have a lot of scope still available to us. We still have 3 envelopes and 3 LFOs ready to use. While those are available, you don't necessarily have to use them. And I think that's one of the things which this synth forces you to think about with a little more care. That is, you have so many modulation sources that you can feel compelled to always use all of them. You don't have to. Use as much as you need. One of my principles in designing sounds is to try and get the most I can out of the earliest part of the signal flow that I can. Meaning that if I can just use the oscillators to get the timbre I need, I would rather not have to involve anything else. The reason for that is It is simpler to reason about the oscillators independently, and it leaves me the rest of the signal flow to refine my idea and to bring forward something more interesting. In any case, I hope you've enjoyed watching this episode. We've just been demonstrating some of the slightly more complex features, hopefully in a more plausible and musical manner than we've done thus far. I'm going to come back and probably design another 3 or 4 sounds in the same way. I hope that sounds interesting. I hope you'll join me for some more episodes, but most importantly, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me today, and goodbye.